Ben şimdi Microsoft bulut çözümleri hakkında, özellikle de özel bulut konusunda daha detaylı bilgi vermek üzere Claire Henry'i sahneye davet etmek istiyorum. Claire, Windows Server ve System Center ürünlerinin direktörü. So, Claire, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. On behalf of Microsoft and our partners in the room, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to come today and share with you the best of MMS. You know, it was just 3 weeks ago today that we were in Las Vegas and Brad Anderson, our corporate vice president, gave the same speech. It was a great week. The enthusiasm that week was probably the best I've seen in a number of years. And I give it a couple of reasons why. The community, the folks like yourselves coming together, learning, going deep, and understanding what we were doing, but also how they could go back and innovate and apply it in their organizations was really amazing. I mean, you could follow the Twitters that day and the rest of the week, and you saw some just real excitement. So I'm joined today by Ken and Owens, and we're going to share some of that same goodness with you. There were two themes we talked about that week: the continuous services and connected devices. Today I'm going to focus on the day one keynote, which is really about continuous services. But you can't abstract these two themes. Think of all of the devices that you're being asked to manage or that you yourself are using, whether it's your latest phone, whether it's a tablet or the latest PC. People are wanting to experience their applications on many different form factors. And what does this mean for you in the audience? It means that we have to deliver these concepts of continuous services, because I want that application on whatever device. And what does a continuous service mean? It means that that application's ready 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It demands a new kind of service from you. So today we're going to show you how with System Center 2012 and Windows Server, you can transform your data center, apply private cloud attributes, and really achieve those continuous services. Let's talk a little bit about the evolution of computing. You know, it was in 2011 that, in fact, the installed base of virtual OSs surpassed the installed base of physical servers. Think about that for a minute. It means more and more people are moving to virtualized instances, which requires a great deal more management. And in fact, in 2012, we think there will be about 8 million servers sold worldwide. Of those 8 million, 6 million will be physical, 2 million will be virtual hosts. And on those virtual hosts, we expect to see 13 million instances of virtual OSs. Now, that doesn't really solve a lot of problems. There's this thing called virtual machine sprawl. So you still must apply management, deep automation, orchestration. And as you start applying those management principles, now you start to achieve the benefits of private cloud. And as we talk to customers, and we've done some surveys internally, they say, you know, where will you put your applications? Will you use the public cloud? Will you use the private cloud? And customers are going to be using both. You get great choice going forward. And there's going to be great reasons to continue to invest and build out your own private clouds, whether it's for legal reasons, maybe you have data sovereignty issues, perhaps you want compliance issues, or you just really need the control. Understand that Microsoft's here with you on that journey. As you heard earlier, we absolutely have deep investments across both public and private cloud. Now, as we move through the conversation, I think it's really important to talk about what we mean by the private cloud attributes, or any cloud attributes for that matter. Ask yourself these questions. Think first about the concept of pooled resources. Today, do your applications, can they share the underlying infrastructure? Or is it that an application is dedicated to a single server or multiple servers? Are you able to share your resources across many of your business units? Do you have the capability to scale on demand? As the application load increases, does your infrastructure automatically scale? Can you automatically add that next web instance? What about self-service? You know, your developers, your testers need a VM immediately. They want to be able to deploy the application on their terms. Your application owners need to be able to respond to the business. Can they do that? Can they quickly get new capacity? Can they deploy the application on their terms? And lastly, can you give your users insight into their actual usage? Can you show them what they're using? Perhaps you're even venturing on the opportunities to give chargeback bills. That's what we talk about with private cloud or any cloud. These are the attributes: the ability to share resources, to scale on demand, provide a self-service experience, and show usage. Why? Why does this change? I mean, why does this change our ability to deliver IT as a service? You know, for many of you, you've worked really hard in your careers to make sure you're delivering your businesses the best types of IT services. But it's been complex. And because of the complexity, it's hard to be responsive. With these cloud attributes, you can take a much more agile approach. You're not hampered by having to go out and customize and manually set things up. No, if the business need changes, you can be agile. You can quickly respond. The economics are astounding. I talked earlier about the virtual instances. The consolidation of physical hosts really makes them for some great economic benefits. The ability to cut down on power, the ability just to manage fewer moving parts, and the ability to share resources. In my previous job, while at Microsoft, I had the opportunity to work with a large United States retailer, Nordstrom. And when they developed their point-of-sale systems, they developed a large mainframe. Nordstrom had 6 weeks a year where they needed that mainframe to operate at full capacity. The other months of the year sat about 25% capacity, but they had to pay for it all year round. They didn't have the ability to share that resources. The cloud computing really changes the economics of that. And lastly, innovation. Because of the simplicity that you get to deliver now, because you're able to remove the complexity from the application owner, you really have time left. Time to really help your businesses think about potential new kinds of applications, new kinds of services. A great example, again, I apologize, another United States customer, Empire CLS, New York-based customer. Ken and I visited them in December, and they are a limousine driving service. So they operate a car service throughout New York. And they decided to adopt cloud computing. And they realized how much easier it was to set up their scheduling system and their billing system using cloud computing. And they said, wow, this is really easy. We should do this for all of the other limousine services across the United States. So they totally reinvented themselves. Now, of course, they still drive cars in New York City, but they also offer these cloud services to other limousine services throughout San Francisco, Chicago, and many of the major U.S. cities. Again, a total opportunity to reinvent themselves. Did a lot of good work earlier in talking about Microsoft's investments both across Windows Azure and across your private cloud. The one thing I want to reiterate here is the deep investments we make in Windows Azure. We run large scale services in Windows Azure. Bing, Xbox Live. Think of the numbers of users. I think Xbox Live has over 70 million users. We have to understand how to run that efficiently, how to make sure we can scale on demand. And what do? We take that deep insight, that deep learning, and we embed it back into the products we give to you. So you too can have that great capability to develop and deliver your own clouds. And the other thing we think about is when we've talked to you and you said, yes, I am going to have some of my services in my own private cloud for a very long time. I will start taking advantage of some of the public cloud offerings. Maybe it's in the public cloud, maybe it's in a service provider, Windows Azure, or maybe a service provider. But make sure I can do things in a common way. Give me a common identity using Windows Active Directory. Make sure I have common virtualization technologies. So potentially I can take my VM where it is on my private cloud and move it to a service provider. Make sure I understand a development strategy that protects my investments. Make sure .NET can take an application, whether it's running on a phone, whether it's running my private cloud or my public cloud, And lastly, give me one management experience. I don't want multiple tools. I want to be able to move my applications across clouds. I want to be able to see their performance and so forth. That's our commitment. That's our commitment. When Satya Nadella, our president, talks about cloud optimizing every business. So you see that we're embedding these learnings and embedding these technologies in the products not only for our own public cloud offering, but the products we bring to you as well. Today, for the rest of this talk, I'm going to talk about the Microsoft Private Cloud. The Microsoft Private Cloud is brought to you by Windows Server and System Center. And we already did a little celebration, but it is very exciting. The one thing I wanted to add to this is we thought about bringing Windows System Center 2012 to market. We talked to a lot of customers, and yes, you said, simplify the way I purchase it. I don't want to have to go through your catalog of 100 types of products to buy and understand what to do. But it was more than the simplification of the way you acquire the product. We also knew you needed all of the components of System Center to work together seamlessly, making sure that they could understand the data between the components, understand the workflows and the automation between the components. And that's what we delivered. So by bringing all of the components together, application controller, configuration manager, data protection manager, virtual machine manager, service manager, operations manager, endpoint protection and configuration manager, we give you one product now so you can bring that automation and orchestration to your data center. And you know what else we did? You told us as well, hey, I'm going to deploy a server. On that server, I'm going to have many, many virtual machines. I don't know how many I'll have. I might start off with 5. I might move to 6. I may end up with 10 or 20 on that. Don't make me come back and keep charging. So that's right. With 2 SKUs and the data center SKU, you can have unlimited virtual machines, and you don't have to pay extra. Now, we are pretty proud of it, but obviously there's some great stats up here. 2 things about this slide I want you to think about. One, what are the reviewers saying? You know, the reviewers were so impressed when we had them into Redmond back in January. We sat with them for 2 days, and they did hands-on experiences with System Center 2012, and they walked away saying, wow, Microsoft really does understand the private cloud. And not only do they understand it, but they understand how to simplify it and make it approachable for the customer. I also want to let you know we did great and deep work. Many with you right in this room, customers from Turkey and Istanbul, in making sure System Center was ready to ship. Over 100,000 servers were in production when we shipped in April. Only 10,000 of those, by the way, were at Microsoft. So know a lot of your peers in the industry and potentially yourselves were part of our journey here and helped us make this product great. So thank you. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for the great, continuous business you give us. We really, really appreciate it. You should feel proud. You were part of the journey. You gave us a lot of insight, and then you helped us test it as well. You know, we had a couple great customers, and while I could continue to stand up here and brag about System Center, I think you'd rather hear it from some customers. So let's roll the video.
Egged is the #1 public transportation company in Israel. We have more than 900,000 passengers every day, and we have more than 3,000 buses. Microsoft System Center and Private Cloud give Egged the best solution in IT.
We are already using System Center to give us deep insight into our infrastructure. By moving ahead with System Center 2012, we expect to expand our capabilities and achieve deeper application insight. This is what ultimately matters. With all the pieces of System Center 2012 working together, we get a complete platform view with the best economics.
System Center management tools offer Unilever an integrated platform to monitor both infrastructure and applications. Using System Center 2012, we expect to be able to automate many repetitive tasks, which will allow us to focus on service improvements.
I want to operate this environment as efficiently as possible as I can for T. Rowe Price in delivering those services to our customers. I could do that now at System Center 2012. It is truly a game changer, and we're going to take full advantage of it here at T. Rowe Price.
What's interesting about Unilever, too, talking to those folks and talking to T. Rowe Price, but specifically Unilever, they're expecting to double the size of their business over the next couple of years, yet they don't expect to increase the footprint of their data center. They think they can continually deliver services with the Microsoft System Center and Windows Server approach. It's really impressive. And I also want to make a shout out and a call out to Dennis Bank here, right here in Istanbul. When I was here last year, we had the opportunity to sit down. It was so great to see their opportunity and their plan. You can see some great numbers up here, over $7 million in savings and the cost avoidance of $12 million. That is really, really amazing. And what they're doing around delivering that service and delivering the private cloud is astounding. I think if they're here today, you should seek them out and learn more about what they're doing. And I think when they talk about the numbers of applications and how they're able to simplify the delivery of the applications, it's really, really, just inspiring to see how people are reinventing IT. Right here locally is another great example with Dennis Bank. I also want to talk about when you think about the readiness and getting ready to deploy your private cloud, it's always interesting to know how you go about acquiring it. And in the past, you talk to your hardware providers, and then you talk to the storage providers potentially, and then you start working on configurations. That's not simple enough. So we introduced the Fast Track program. And what Fast Track program is Microsoft engineers back in Redmond, both with System Center and Windows Server, work together to define a specification around configuration. And then you can go and work with these hardware partners. And I'm pleased to announce there's over 12 new specifications for the Microsoft private cloud. And many thanks right here in the room to the sponsors, specifically HP, doing great, great work, and Dell, making sure that these fast track configurations are ready. And as you look at them, I think we were meeting with Gartner right before MMS, back in Redmond, and they were so impressed with this and so impressed of how the entry level for your first private cloud was. They were doing some calculations in the room, so these are not done on real spreadsheets yet, but they figured out, wow, you could go get your first private cloud for under $10,000 US. It's really, really approachable. It makes something that you can take advantage of today. So we're excited about it, as you can tell. But now I want to really get into what it does. What does System Center 2012 do? So for the rest of the presentation, I'm really going to focus on the product, what it does, and we're going to show you some fantastic demos. When we started designing System Center 2012, and those of you who were here last year, we've talked about these two groups of people within your organization. The data center admin on the left, and most of you in the room probably represent that contingency of folks. What do they need? They need the ability to deliver infrastructure, to deliver those IT services in a very cost-effective way, meeting the SLAs, but most of all predictable. So when the application owner needs something, they can do it each and every time the same way. On the other side is the application owner. The application owner is the one who's responsible for the application that the business uses. Generally speaking, this is not an end user, but somebody who is in the IT department. They're the ones who deploy the application, understand the health of the application, understand the business requirements. They want simplicity. When it's time to deploy a new application or start imagining a new application, they don't want to come in and learn about deep IP addresses. They just want to understand, I need CorpNet access. They don't want to understand all the ins and outs of storage. They just need a block of storage. So simplifying it for them is really, really important. As we designed System Center 2012, we thought deeply about these two people. And you'll see the product serves both. We've been talking about this for a couple of years, but one of the things you saw earlier, we talked about one of the benefits of private cloud being agility and simplification. This has been hard. I honor the work you've done. I honor how well this profession has done to deliver great services to the businesses, but it's been hard. And why has it been hard? Because when you take an application and deploy it, generally speaking, it has been tightly coupled with the underlying server. And as you tightly couple that application to the server, over time, they become tighter and tighter. So it's even hard to understand what the application is versus what the operating system is. This makes it really tough to change, whether it's just having to patch a server or whether it's updating the application. Oftentimes it takes weeks, if not months. And you know, if there's one of those Patch Tuesdays or software updates, I may have to even reboot the server, bring the server down. So IT becomes locked. It's hard to change. We want to break you from that. We want to take that tight coupling away. And with System Center 2012, we've worked hard at this. We've defined an application model and worked really hard in the application model so you can abstract the application from the underlying infrastructure. Then we understand that that application may need to work across multiple servers. You don't want it dedicated to just one server. And of course, we want to understand what the storage needs are and the networking needs. Pretty soon, as you think about it, you can start taking the storage, the compute, and the network and holistically bringing them together so you now have a private cloud infrastructure. And as you manage that as one holistic infrastructure, you really are doing cloud computing. This is that abstraction, and being able to look at that set of capacity as a unit or multiple units makes it far easier to deliver those IT services to the business. Now I can think in terms of service. It's not just an application, but it's really the service. And because of the service model we've introduced, you can now start embedding the business processes, the business requirements right into the service. And what happens here is now I can start thinking about what kind of capacity I need. What kind of availability do I need? And I can design for that. And as I design for it, then it becomes much easier to maintain. And once you have this service, and you understand the levels of this within the service, and you understand the business requirements within those levels, now it makes it really easy to deploy that service across many clouds, whether it's your internal cloud, whether it's Windows Azure, or whether it's a service provider. And that's our commitment, and that's what we're working on, and that's what we've been able to deliver. So let's start with our first scenario. As the data center administrator, you need to understand your resources because application demand is going to shift and it's going to change. I need to make sure that I always have resources available. I need to be a little bit ahead, in fact, of where my demand might be. But this has been tough. So typical, I go out and I buy a new server to add capacity. Then what do? I go and talk to the storage folks and say, hey, I'd like some storage, please. And they might provision it. It may take some time, and I have to think about what kind of storage. High-end storage, low-end storage, SAN, direct attach. Then I need to go and talk to the network folks. What kind of network do I need? And now it's just really beginning, though. Then I have to connect to the network. Then I have to patch. Then I have to install Hyper-V. Then I have to configure Hyper-V. Then I have to configure DHCP. Then I have to do a reboot. And then I have to probably deploy some agents. And then I may have to do another reboot. This takes time. It takes days. It takes a lot of people working together. And you know, with all of those manual tasks and activities, you're also introducing the possibility of error. I want to show you today how easy it is to automate these tasks and activities. As you start automating it, it becomes very easy not just to quickly add capacity, but to really standardize your approach. So with that, I'm going to invite Kenan Owens up. And Kenan is going to take us through our first demo. And in this demo, you're going to see we've got our private cloud infrastructure, and we need to quickly add capacity. And how easy we make that within System Center alone for you as a data center admin to really become the private cloud infrastructure admin and manage those components end to end. Kenan?
Thanks, Claire. So within an organization, there are many things that you're really concerned about. One of them is making sure that you have the capacity available to
and to cover the loads that you have. So within System Center 2012, we now give you the ability to not only see what the utilization is of your infrastructure today, but also to predict maybe when you're going to start running out of capacity. I would hate to have a bunch of application owners come to me and say, my applications perform poorly because I don't have enough infrastructure. So by being able to monitor within System Center, I'm able to see not only what my utilization has been doing, but I've seen that I'm starting to hit some capacity thresholds that I don't want to go above 80%. What this means is that now I'll buy some new servers and I'll start deploying them inside my environment. So within System Center 2012, I have the ability now to add Hyper-V hosts or ESX servers or Citrix Xen servers to my underlying private cloud infrastructure to be able to deploy these servers and services and be the resources that these applications can host. So I'm going to do some bare metal deployment here of a Hyper-V server to add those resources into my pool and be able to take advantage of quickly and easily adding these resources within Hyper-V. I'm going to add these physical servers, and this is basically taking a bare metal server. I just racked it up yesterday, or we just racked it up right before MMS, that is. And inside of that server, we have the ability now to communicate with that baseboard management controller. What this means is that I can connect to your ILO servers or your ILO of the server or the Dell DRAC or whatever the resources I need to connect to the server using standard protocols. I'm using IPMI here. The other thing I do is I give it just a connection information, the login ID, and I give it a range of IP addresses that I want to use to connect to this server. So I'm going to connect here either between 251 and between 253. And what this allows me to do is go through and ping each of these servers and get a response back as to which of these servers has a baseboard management controller. It finds that I have 3 of these servers up here. And one of the servers I want to is the server that I just want to bare metal install, and that's this first one here, .253. So I'll choose that server, and then after I choose a server, I'll be able to now pick 2 things. One, where I'm putting that server, so which cluster of servers I want to join it to, and then also I'll be able to set a profile for this server. Now profiles are important because a profile allows me to determine what pre-configured drivers or maybe what OS in the installed OS inside of that machine that I want to install on this system. Well, I'm going to pick the production DHCP server here. If I wanted to do static IP addresses, I could do those things as well. And then I just give it a name, and I'm going to call this server ConBM04. And at that point now, I'm ready to deploy this server. So we're going to connect to the server and do a bare metal install of the OS. But since it takes a lot of time, what we've done is we captured a video of Vijay Tiwari when he did this install at MMS. So if we could cue the video. As you can see, it's a difficult life as an IT admin now with System Center 2012. What we really want to do, though, is not only are we talking about servers, but we're also talking about storage and networking. And in the networking environment, I've yet to see an application owner say to me, I want my server deployed on IP address 10.7.3.2 with a subnet or a VLAN of 37. Instead, what they want to access, like Claire said, is I want to access CorpNet or I want to access Contoso. They don't want to know what that underlying information is. And we can provide that for our customers with the ability to abstract that complex networking that you have within your environment and just give them the easy view of, say, the Contoso network. And inside the Contoso network, I can create different network sites for my different data centers. I have a couple of different data centers inside of our campus here at Microsoft, and in Building 42, I have different types of networking requirements. I may have multiple different subnets and VLANs, but with System Center 2012, we make it easy for you because you can provide just the Contoso network to your customer, and then we'll decide when we deploy the virtual machines which network it gets, which IP it gets, and we'll statically assign that to the machines. Now that we've talked networking, we've talked compute, let's talk storage. With VMM 2012, the component of System Center 2012, we allow you to manage your storage and deploy the different LUNs that you need that are capable for your machines when you create add your hosts or create your clusters. What this means is that I have a system here that's using Dell Compellent Storage, and inside that Dell Compellent Storage, I have a few LUNs that are assigned to me. Now with those LUNs, I can create different allocations and allocate these pools of storage to my different clusters of servers by simply using the protocols within VMM. I now don't have to go to my storage guy every time I need a new LUN to ask for new storage. They can give me a pool of storage resources, and I can divvy it out. And the last thing I want to do is be able to add that server that I just deployed into a cluster. So within VMM 2012, we have the ability to not only manage our storage and networking, but take the system that we just did a bare metal deployment on and add it as a node to the cluster. And to do this, all we have to do is basically drag and drop that node onto the cluster we want to add it to, give it the domain admin account to use to join that machine to the cluster, and then at that point, just hit OK, and we have the cluster. So what we've shown you today is the ability to take a system, do a bare metal install of it, configure it out, hook it up to the networking, attach the storage, join it to the cluster, and bring it all together within VMM that allow you to save time and effort when you're adding more resources to your public cloud. Thank you.
So we had a little fun with that, in the VJ video, but it does really show you how automation really does reduce time and make it simple. And I think Ken showed you some great ways right within System Center now. You can start managing and bringing that pool of resources together so you have your private cloud infrastructure. Okay, now that we've got the infrastructure, I'm going to take on the role of the application owner. And as I think about being able to roll out my next application, I want to make sure that this infrastructure that Kenan's provided me can scale on demand and I can quickly get access to it. But this also is difficult. As I start to think about my application, most of applications, they again require, as Kenan just defined, certain type of network, certain type of storage, and of course a certain specification around compute. And then the application itself generally has 3 tiers. My web tier, my application tier, my data tier. And of course, then all of this together makes up that service that the business ultimately uses. But just like in adding capacity, not a simple thing, same thing as you think about being ready to deploy a new application. I have to go and I have to get permission, or I have to ask Kenan or beg Kenan to get me new resources, and then I have to configure the IPs and so forth. So Kenan and I are going to do this demo together. And I'm going to be the application owner. Switch over to the demo. Here you see an application. It's called an expense app. And this is an application that we're getting ready to put into production. It's a pre-production environment here. I've gone through my user testing and so forth, and now it's getting ready to do some final testing. But see, it is truly an application. So I've got some fun mock-up expenses here. If I was using this application, I would be right here within App Controller. App Controller is the part of System Center 2012 component that the application owner uses. Here you can say, first of all, that recognizes, actually I'm not Ryan, this system was our MMS system and Kenan didn't put my name in it. But you can see there's a sense of identity. So as Ryan, I'm only seeing the resources I have available to me and the clouds that I have available to me. Notice here I've got my capacity. I can understand here in my private cloud what the quotas that have been set for me and how much I have left to do. Now here's where I see my services. And you can see again across both my private and Windows Azure services. Now, here is where it gets really interesting. We talked about that model I talked about before. This is where you take the templates and you embed your business practices and your business policies. What kind of performance, what kind of compliance requirements I have. It's a negotiation really between the application owner and the data center admin. These templates then are part of the library. So when Kenan gives me, the application owner, access to my cloud, he also gives me access to a certain type of templates. So when I go to deploy it, Kenan is absolutely in control because he knows exactly what I'm deploying. It's a pre-negotiated implementation.
Right.
Now here is back to, this is a, before I deploy it, I want to put some demand on my application. And I'm going to test Kenan's infrastructure. So I've created this tool called, it's like a chaos monkey, and I'm going to throw load at that application that's in my pre-production cloud. And I'm going to see how Kenan's infrastructure holds up to this. So I throw some load at it. And you can see now, I'm going to let Kenan talk about what's going on here in Operations Manager.
So what Claire's done is she's added load to this application, and through Operations Manager, I'm monitoring the performance of this application. And as we can see, the application is starting to degrade a little bit in performance as the load goes up. What I need to do is I need to add more capacity to this application. But really, I don't want to have to be sitting here every day deploying out new services. So through the beauty of automation, what I've done is I've created the ability to scale out this application. It monitors the load on the system. And what happens is, if we switch over to Virtual Machine Manager, we'll see that this application has one virtual machine assigned to the front-end web tier. But we see that the load is going on the system and creating my performance. So what happens is over time, Operations Manager will notice this problem, will kick off an orchestration that will automatically scale out these resources. If I do a refresh here, we see now that not only do we have just one server, but we're deploying out a brand new server to handle that load. This will decrease the load per server, which will now allow me to continue to meet my SLAs. So yeah, throw some resources at it. I can automate that and get that. So I really only need my cup of coffee here.
Thanks, Kenan. I have trust that he's growing that infrastructure, and I can get ready to deploy my app now. I understand what he's doing. If I go back over to App Controller, oops, we didn't have that. You can see I'm starting to deploy additional instances. And so now I have confidence. Because of that negotiation, because of the rules we've embedded in those templates, the system automatically responded to the load. Now I want to be straight with you. We're not actually running the full rack of servers back here. This was the demos we did at MMS, and so these are recorded. So that's why you're seeing some of the, but I invite you to go back out and you can look at it, and we can actually show you some of this later on today as well.
Yeah, we'll show you during the sessions today.
So now I've got this, and I understand that Kenan's infrastructure is going to scale on demand. I've thrown my pre-prod testing at it. The next thing I need to do is deploy the application. But again, I don't necessarily have, if you notice up here, I have the pre-prod cloud. I don't have the production cloud. So what I want to do is go over here and go to my service request. Right again, within System Center 2012, we've created this capability of service catalog and service request. So I go to the service request form, and what do I want? I want access to the Contoso production cloud. I want to specify the kind of capacity I need. And then, of course, I also want to specify the types of recovery services I want. And what's really interesting here is because Kenan's given me this service offering, again, I just get choices. But these are the right choices for the organization. Okay, I'll choose that one, Kenan. And notice again, because Kenan needs to stay in control, if I look down at the bottom here, he's automatically applied antivirus protection as well as application performance monitoring. So again, right within this service request, I'm getting some standard offerings that Kenan has already pre-built and so forth. So now, Kenan, as I do this, great, my request is in. What's going to happen now?
So this is another difficult task, because not only does she ask for all these different resources, but I got to provide these resources to her. I got to set up access to the clouds that she needs to use, and then I got to make sure the templates that she wants to deploy are available for her. But again, through automation, I'm able to do this without having to actually touch the keyboard. I've automated the task. When that service request comes in, I'll kick off an orchestrator runbook, which will go through and add her to the right user roles within VMM to access the proper pools. So if she just refreshes her app controller window, she'll see that new cloud will just appear. It comes up. Because of the fact that I'm able to now create those service offerings and know exactly what I need to provide for her, she's able to get those resources quickly without having to wait for me.
And so now the last thing I want to do is go into my production cloud, and I'm going to go and request a service template. And here again, you see it's noticing the amount of capacity I have and what I can deploy. And I go in and I can just go through that and I can click on it. What's really interesting here is when I chose that MS Expense template, again, this is the pre-negotiated template. So when I deploy it, Kenan knows exactly what I want. Thanks, Kenan.
Cheers.
So appreciate the really deep automation. If those of you in the audience who have not used Orchestrator yet, back to slides, I really encourage you to take the Orchestrator component out of System Center 2012 so that you can start creating these run books and providing your organization this deep automation. The next thing we need to do, we've deployed the application, but you know what? It's not just about being able to deploy it. It's about the ongoing management and monitoring of it. So with System Center 2012, we've delivered deep application monitoring. And what's important about this is you want to monitor the service holistically, not just the performance of the network, not just the performance of the server, but also the understanding of how the application is performing. Oftentimes we say, the end user experience may not be that great. And you know what? The end user calls the help desk. And then you know what? The help desk calls the developer. And then you know what? The developer says, it's the server's problem. It's the network's problem. With System Center 2012, we deliver deep insight across the application. So you can really have an understanding of how it's performing and then diagnose and understand what's causing the performance bottlenecks. So with that, I'm going to let Kenan do a quick another demo here.
Great. So what she's saying is that no matter if I'm an application owner or I'm the infrastructure admin, I need to know how my applications are performing, and I need to be able to quickly identify any type of problems that may be occurring. If you look at an application, what you see is that not only do I have availability, meaning that I know this application or this server is up and running, and it's been running for the past day at 100%, so I know that this server is available, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the application is running effectively. So in a VM-centric world, what I really would know is that the application server is running, but I don't necessarily know that I'm not meeting my SLAs as far as the performance of the application. Inside the application, we have the ability now with System Center to monitor the transactions that are occurring within this application. And we see that we are having a problem meeting our SLA. We want to make sure that the response time is under 9 seconds, but really what's happening is it's averaging 16 seconds. With Operations Manager, we can drill in and find out exactly what's happening there, but let's see what that really looks like. So this expenses application that we moved to production is not performing the way it should. If I do a refresh here, it should just come right back with the different information. But instead, it's not there. It's just going through and it's churning while it's trying to get all that information. So I'm not meeting those service levels that I promised Claire for this application. But I need to know why. And so let me drill in further and figure out what's actually happening. So through the application diagnostics capabilities we have within Operations Manager now with System Center 2012, we can drill into this expense manager application and find that the web services transactions are average time of 9.2 seconds when we should be down below 9 for this, and in fact most of the time we should be down at 500 milliseconds. If I drill down further into that application, I see this has been going on for quite a while now, over the past 24 hours. And I can view exactly what pieces of this application are having problems and determine where that problem occurs. If I look under the key metrics, I see that I have this one command that keeps failing inside this application. It's happened over 179 times, and it's going to just keep happening until I figure out what the problem is. I can drill down further into there, and I see that it's a SQL call, and I can show things like the parameters of that SQL call to know exactly what's been passed. The knowledge here is important because what it allows me to do is pass off to my developers and say, this is exactly where the problem is occurring. Please fix it. So I can see that I have this problem, the SQL command here. I can expand out and find out exactly what's going wrong with the SQL command. And then I can take this same information and pass it over through our connector to Visual Studio. And they, inside Visual Studio, will have another work item. And that work item will say, this is exactly where the problem is. These are the problem in the code. And they can use this in their development side to develop the application where I've taken the application, found root cause, and been able to pass that information to them. So when you pull this all together, we have great application insight to understand where the problem occurs, to be able to drill down whether it's physical or application issues, and drill down into those issues and be able to pass the right information from us to our developers to get a quick time to resolution.
What's really interesting about that too is, and we've talked to customers who have applied this. This came from an acquisition of AbiCode we made about a year and a half ago, and we've embedded it right now into System Center 2012. This application performance management. Customers go and install this, and they come back and they say, wow, you know, it took us weeks, sometimes even more than weeks, to figure out what the root cause was. We always had the same recurring problems. We installed this, and we are now getting to problems within a day. We are really able to really, truly fix it and not just keep repeating the same incident over and over and over again. So again, another great asset in the System Center family. I think what we also wanted to talk about, we've just shown you some great technology. We've shown you how with System Center 2012 it's really easy to add capacity, how you can automate the scale, how you can automate the recovery. And we also want to make a commitment to you. How do we help you take advantage of these new technologies now and really think about your own careers? Think about your next generation opportunities within your company, to innovate within your company. And so we've reinvented the Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer as well. We're introducing a private cloud certification. So now you can take a couple more tests and you can add a private cloud standard certification to your resume. I encourage you to go out and do this because a lot of people are saying, how am I ready? Microsoft, help me get ready. So again, between the Microsoft Virtual Academies you saw, the certifications, we're there. We're making sure that you are ready as well. You know, we're pretty excited about System Center 2012.
That's right.
We think it's fantastic. Customers are starting to migrate their data centers, change their data centers to deliver true cloud attributes, helping you really think about being able to deliver those continued services. And you know what? It's available today, but it just keeps getting better. It's a great 2012 calendar year is a great year for us. Windows Server Beta came out March 1. And we named it at MMS. It's not Windows Server 8. It'll be Windows Server 2012, as we said earlier. And you can bet that we named it 2012, so it will be out in 2012. And this is by far and away one of the largest, most comprehensive reimaginations of Windows Server in over 10 years. Many people compare this back to when we really did all the deep enterprise work in 2003. And again, great support here locally, great support worldwide from customers helping us get it ready. And I could keep talking about it. I'm super excited about it, but we're going to show it to you. So let's have Kenan show it to you.
All right. there are over 4,000 new features within Windows Server 8, so it's really difficult to figure out which are the best ones that we want to show you today. But since we were talking about System Center and management, what I really want to focus on here is showing you some of the things that we can do with managing and bringing Windows Server 8 as being the definitive cloud platform for your private cloud. One of the things that our customers told us is that they want to better manage their storage, whether it's iSCSI, whether it's fiber channel connected SAN, whether it's locally attached disks. They want to be able to create their storage, add storage on demand, and be able to manage across multiple types of storage and bring them all together. And as you see, what we've done within Windows Server, not only have we updated the look and feel, this is the new Server Manager here, but we've also added new technologies like storage spaces. And storage spaces allows me to take a LUN that I've created through a group of server hard disks and be able to, as I run into issues, expand them on the fly, add things like hot spares and those types of things. So we can see here is that I have a LUN right now, a storage pool that's created that has 272 gigs of data, 272 gigs of capacity, but only 9 gigs of data left. So we're running in here, easily seeing that, yeah, we're red here. We're running out of space. With storage spaces, I can easily add capacity to this pool of storage by just simply adding physical disks, whether they're local or SAN attached. And I have these disks right here that are 2 extra physical disks that I could add. Now I could add them as just part of the data store, or I could simply add them as a hot spare if I wanted to. I need all the capacity available to me, so I'm going to add them as data store. And just by hitting OK here, we're able to bring up the capacity from 9 gigs free to now adding that 270 gigs, so now 280 gigs free. So we're able to do a lot with storage now that allows you as an administrator to handle all the different types of storage needs that you have within your environment. The other thing, though, is people said, your virtual machines are too small. I just can't do everything I need to do with the virtual machines that you have. Well, with Windows Server 2012 Beta, we now allow you to create a virtual machine that's 32 virtual processors big. And it can handle all the different types of Tier 1 type workloads that you have, whether it be your SQL servers, your Exchange servers, or whatever you have there. Not only did we increase capacity of what the processors for the virtual machines, but we also increase capacity for your networking, your memory. Not only is our memory now 32 or 16 times bigger than what it was before, we've bumped it up to 1 terabyte of RAM inside the Windows Server 2012 Beta. But we weren't stopping there. As far as these sizes of virtual machines, people also wanted larger, better performing disks to handle those newer servers that are coming out. And so what we've done is within Windows Server 2012, we've added a new virtual hard disk where we can now create 64 terabyte virtual hard disks. This is 32 times greater than any virtual hard disk mechanism out there on the market today. So we can handle all of those Tier 1 primary workloads that you need within Hyper-V. But we didn't stop there. We talk about what the infrastructure for that virtual machine is, but people also said, I want to better handle your live migration. So within Hyper-V itself, what we've done is we've increased the types of live migration you can have. So within Windows Server 2008, we allowed 1 migration per cluster at a time, and we could move virtual machines from one host to another. But you said that wasn't good enough. So what we did was we've added multiple simultaneous live migrations within Hyper-V, but also we said that's not enough. I have 2 systems here, and they're not connected at all, except for by an Ethernet cable. Why can't I just migrate a system from one machine to another? Why do I have to have shared storage between them? Why do I have to have all this other stuff? I don't. With Windows Server 2012, we've introduced shared nothing live migration, where I can take a virtual machine running on one system over here, maybe it's in a cluster on this side over here, and I can take another system over on this side of the data center, totally separate cluster, totally separate environment, and I can do a live migration from one to the other with just the network connection between them. To do that, I'm going to show you VMM 2012, the next release that's going to support Windows Server 2012. And inside of this release, we have the ability to create, do these live migrations, whether they are migrating your virtual machine or just migrating your storage. And what we see is that we have multiple hosts that we could migrate that virtual machine to. And we can either do it via live migration with virtual and shared storage migration, or we could just move that virtual machine from one LUN to another. I'm going to do the shared nothing live migration. Choosing my second host over here, hitting next, I can choose what directory to put that storage in. The virtual hard disk in when it moves it to the new host. I'll take the default. I can also choose to change the networking configuration if I wanted to at the point of moving the virtual machine around. But this is the same network that I need it to be connected to, so I'll just hit next here. Everything we've done here can be done via PowerShell. So within VMM, everything we do is within PowerShell. Within Windows Server 2012, we've added over 4 times the amount of PowerShell command list for managing your Windows Server environment. So I could automate all these things through PowerShell scripts and hook them into things like an orchestrator runbook if I wanted to, just to show you what it looks like. But at this point, I just hit next and I hit move, and it's going to start migrating that virtual machine across from one system to another with no shared storage connectivity, and just move it across from the one system. But that's not it. We have a lot of customers that tell us that either one, they want to start talking to hosters about hosting their virtualized environment, or two, they have different organizations that need to share the same networking scheme, but have to be on totally isolated networks. So the other thing we've done within Windows Server 2012 is created the ability to isolate and separate networks within the same environment without having to resort to things like using VLANs. And that's important because with your VLAN environment, it makes your networking very, very complex as you're trying to figure out how these different organizations or these different groups can share the same IP scheme without having their network traffic co-populate with each other. So what we've done with Windows Server 2012 is that we allow you to create multiple different networking environments, all with the same IP address, but all totally separate and isolated. In this environment, I'm a host or Fabricam, and I have multiple companies that are sharing the same networks and these shared same resources. But they need to have their own networking environment that's totally isolated from someone else. And it just so happens that Contoso's network environment is 10.0.0 network, but also this Tailspin organization is also 10.0.0. But I have to have them on the same network without them talking to each other, without the Tailspin machines being able to see the traffic from the Contoso network. And I do that through the network virtualization capabilities we have with Windows Server 2012. And what that really means is that I can have 2 separate organizations on the network. Each of those organizations could have the exact same networking IPs, but they only see the traffic to their network. So I've totally isolated it and brought all these things together and able to share these resources without having to resort to many complex networking schemes. So Windows Server 2012 now becomes that definitive private cloud infrastructure where I can host and manage my environment because the virtual machines I provide are big enough, they're fast enough, and they give me the flexibility to support all the different environments and needs that I have within the organization. Thank you.
What I like about that, especially when Kenny was talking about scale, what I like about that, when you talk about, 32 virtual CPUs, and again, folks, that's just with beta. Expect it to get even better when we come to release. And, think about the memory. Whether it's, 1 gigabyte, 10 gigabytes, 100 gigabytes, or 1 terabyte, it's all the same price from Microsoft. It's really important. Your needs are going to grow, and so we really want to take advantage of that. So we showed you today System Center 2012, how great it is, how easy it is to help build your private cloud and really deliver on those cloud attributes. And then we showed you what's coming with Windows Server 2012, as well as an update to System Center 2012 that will come to help support the great new features that Kenan just showed you in Server 12. So again, we want to make sure that we're working really closely together to really help you take advantage of this. And what you're going to see is, again, more and more choices. So what does the Microsoft Private Cloud deliver for you? First of all, we believe private cloud is not a destination. Private cloud, as well as all cloud computing, is a model to help you think about things like pooling your resources, storage, network, and compute that you saw, making sure you can scale on demand. That self-service experience I got when I needed access to the production cloud. And lastly, the ability to really have insight into what I'm using. Truly, at the end of the day, though, the business doesn't care about the cloud. The business wants their application. So really focus on the application, the insight in the application, the scale requirements of that application. And then making sure we can think about it from a cross-platform. Kenan talked about how we can help support your current investments, whether they be in, Citrix Zen or VMware and ESX. Making sure that we give you a management solution that supports all of those investments. And it's not just about multiple hypervisors. Many of you are also supporting Linux. We have deep ability to monitor and understand those Linux environments. The foundation for the future. Folks, there is nothing more exciting than Windows Server 2012. Truly a cloud-optimized OS. Ability to scale and build those private clouds. And then lastly, a journey. We know that this is a journey for all of us. You're going to be building out those attributes of the private cloud in your own data center. You're going to choose to work with your service provider and put some of your applications there, as well as maybe that next generation application on Windows Azure. We're here with you on that journey. The Commons makes it easy for you to make the choices at the right time for your business. So with that, I wanted to thank you. And again, reiterate what was said earlier. Embrace cloud computing. Deliver these attributes to your organization. Go, please evaluate System Center 2012 today. Many customers are already successful, like Unilever, Denze Bank, and so forth, and really lead. This is the time to step up and say, how can we change the way we deliver IT in our business? Go out there, have a lot of fun, and become the next cloud innovator for your organization. I hope you have a great day today. I know there's a great agenda packed for you. Ken and I will be here with questions. Thank you very much.